Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Toffees, guys. My name, as always, is Toffees, bringing you all the best in your morning show action. This morning show for gamers, by gamers that we've got going on here today as Coffees with Toffees. And I am joined today by our guest. He's a new guest to the show. You might have heard of him. He is a staff caster for the Amateur Dota 2 League, one of the few leagues that is willing to be live and play even when TI is going on. So we can talk a little more about what the 82L is, as well as Craze's other projects as we go through the show, but I did want to give him an introduction. How are you doing today, Craze?
Hey, how are you?
I can't complain. Figured we bring someone in from across the ocean to give us some perspectives from a new land. So
Yeah.
what time is it where you are right now?
10 to 1. I'm horrendously tired because I just woke up after coming from a TI4 pub stump.
Nice.
All of my tears are just gone on last night.
Gone.
We'll talk about it. But...
No, we'll talk about it. I mean, we'll talk about it shortly, because that's today, basically, guys, the plan for today is we're going to talk about what happened last night, all of the aspects of it, because keep in mind, this is a morning show. This isn't my, what's the word I'm looking for, neutral casting job. So we're going to talk a little bit about what people say. We'll talk about what's going on Reddit, etc. And then we'll go into some other stuff, you know, like talking about the news and some good video game news I've got for you guys today. So that's the plan. It's the last day before we're actually going to get back into what I hope is the post-TI things happening craze, because I gotta be honest with you, the doldrums of TI make it a little tough for guys like you and me in the semi-pro level of casting to find work or not be generally bored. I have done so much ability draft in the last week, it's not even funny.
Well, here's the thing with the international, right? Normally, every other year, people like me and you, we've been casting, we're quite happy to take a break for a couple of weeks. We're like, huge tournament, lots of money on the line, we're really happy about it. We'll take a break, maybe we'll cast a couple of TI games. I didn't this year. And then the season starts to kick up a little bit again, and like there's loads of leagues coming up, and we start to get work again, and we start to do casting again, and it's super fun and glorious and everything. But normally what we tend to find is that after the international ends, there's lots and lots of new leagues and that kind of thing coming out. Because of the amount of publicity that the international gets and how much hype there is after the international finals. And this year, I'm not sure if we're going to have that.
Yep. No, it's not even the hype so much as I think the change they made to the amateur leagues is going to hurt us a little bit. But, I mean, we'll find out. It's the contracts aren't as big as they were, and for those of you who maybe are interested in going into casting, maybe it's time to talk about this, it is harder and harder, I think, with the changes to the amateur tickets to get into it as far as getting a contract. Now, if you just want to log on and you want to go to a league like the 82L and say, hey, I want to learn to cast, can I cast some games? That's a piece of cake. Talk to me, tweet at Craze, tweet Toffees_Dota2. We'll get you hooked up. Yeah, we'll
hook you up. We are nice.
We will pimp your asses, for lack of a better definition, and we will make sure you get something. That said, if you want a full-blown contract, times are getting tough, especially here in the East Coast of the U.S. as well as I think the West Coast of England, because some new houses have opened. Yeah, well, some new houses have opened recently, like HG, and I love the guys, I love the group, but it means that there's less jobs for those of us who are working as independent contractors. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm excited about having something to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So it'll be good. That said, let's talk. Let's chat about the TI. If anybody is hanging out with us on Twitch, we appreciate you being here. Feel free to throw in some comments and questions, and we'll make sure that we integrate that into the broadcast. For those of you who are watching on YouTube or our SoundCloud that we just put up the RSS, please feel free to comment. I will try to get those in tomorrow or bring up responses whenever I possibly can. So TI. Big event yesterday, the grand final. We all went to pub stomps. I traveled an hour and 10 minutes into a town so that I could see this at a pub stomp, and well, it lasted 85 minutes, didn't it?
Yeah, it was horrible, right? I'll tell you what I did. I've been watching. I'm from the UK, so obviously all the time zones for me are like horrible. I'm up until 3 a.m. watching all the games, but I love Dota, so I did it. Wasn't really that huge of a problem because I haven't got anything to do with my days at the moment. Thankfully, it's summer and I'm a university student. And what me and my brother did and one of my friends did is we went to South London. I'm from Essex, so it's like an hour and a half away when you use trains and stuff. And we basically turned up ended up walking around London for about an hour, 2 hours, which is great. Got to the place, sat down, met some really nice people, and then watched VG Gaming take a very convincing win over Newbie in their first game. I don't think that's I think the honest truth. And then watch Newbie pick up on every single mistake VG made.
Oh my gosh,
and
crazy.
Destroy them for it. It was horrific.
It really was. It was a massacre. So what I think we should do, or what I'd like to do is, there were 5 games. They were all pretty short, but let's talk, or 4 games, sorry. Let's talk about the 4 games. I'll read off the draft for you guys who are listening, just so you can kind of remember what happened in that game. And then I just want to go back and forth and say, you know, was it a good game? What happened? Could it have changed? I don't know. It's interesting. So, first game out, Newbie versus VG. Newbie picks up the Alk, the Lifestealer, the Nature's Prophet, a Lion, and an Ancient Apparition. At the same time, their opponents, VG picks up the Earthshaker, the Shadow Shaman, the Clockwork, the Brewmaster, and the Lone Druid. So this is the start out. When you looked at the 2 drafts, what did you think about them? You know, how did you feel about it going into the game?
Going into it, VG, I feel, definitely has the stronger lineup. Like, their team fight is so much stronger. The Newbie lineup is kind of based around getting pickoffs, it feels like, especially on the Lifestealer, and making sure he can secure that farm so that he can actually become more of a presence in the mid to late game. Because until he's got like an armlet, he's kind of useless. But VG, one thing to point out on is the fact that Newbie felt they did an aggressive tri-lane, so they basically felt that their tri-lane was stronger than VG's tri-lane, which is not the case whatsoever. That was a mistake by Newbie. VG's lineup is a lot more teamfight orientated, and it's they can still get pickoffs though. Like with the Shadow Shaman and the Clockwork, you saw in the early stages of this game, like 2 to 5 minutes, they roamed on this Nature's Prophet, and they just made sure the Nature's Prophet could not contribute to this game. And that's how VG won this first game. They took one member, they took the one person that can be a presence globally on the map. I mean, Ancient Apparition can be as well, but it's kind of skill-based. Like, Nature's Prophet can teleport, he can be a problem. And VG took that one person and made sure they got 0 farm. And I think it was ROTK playing the Clockwork. He continuously, he got so much farm, he was hitting almost 100% of his hooks, which is insane for Clockwork. And just ensured that the Nature's Prophet couldn't do anything. And then when he went to mid, made sure that the mid hero couldn't do anything. Alchemist couldn't do anything in the mid lane as well, which is insane.
No, it was I was really good in the sense of VG looked like they were going to win the tournament in this first game, right? They were on their game. The rotations were strong. If you guys go back and watch it, at 4 minutes, there is a smoke rotation from Shadow Shaman that was like lights out brilliant. He used a smoke to rotate for about 250 units through the trees to drop in behind the offlaner. I'm sorry, the solo safe laner it was of Newbie, and just got the most beautiful pick, and that was just definitely worth watching. I put down that by 16 minutes. VG was already up by over 10,000 golden experience. So they had an amazing run. They took some pickoffs. Like you said, they shut down the Nature's Prophet. And, you know, honestly, I was curious when they made the Nature's Prophet Ancient Apparition pickup together, along with a Lifestealer and no delivery system. I was really skeptical about Newbie's lineup, and I wonder if the idea that they sat there and didn't do anything for 2 or 3 days, because, you know, you're in Seattle, your equipment is already in the hands, essentially, of Valve, right? Because they're setting it up for you for your games. It's not like you've got your rig and your scrim system and places to practice against teams of your caliber. You're sort of just stuck pubbing and hanging out with fans. So you gotta get cold. Like, there's no way around that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think this kind of a Newbie lineup, I haven't seen anything too similar to it. Lion has been picked up very little throughout the tournament, and that's probably because Lion, he does contribute to team fights, but he doesn't contribute as efficiently as someone else, like the Shadow Shaman. Until Lion has something like an Aghanim Scepter, he can then start to counter a team fight orientated lineup. And on Lion, he can play, in this lineup he's clearly built to be a 4, but he didn't roam, he couldn't secure any farm, and that kind of meant him doing poorly. I feel like Newbie maybe played the Lion in pubs, he works very efficiently in pubs, saw that he worked very efficiently, and then took him up to the pro competitive level and realized that he just doesn't have the pushing capacity that VG's kind of lineups are based around,
Right.
and that in turn meant them to cause them to effectively lose out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I feel like anyway. It's VG basically in this first game definitely kind of capitalized on the fact that Newbie made mistakes. The entire final for me felt like it wasn't a game of who was better. It felt like who made the most mistakes was going to lose, and who picked Nature's Prophet. But that's we'll talk about Nature's Prophet later.
Yeah. So so that was the first game, and the first game was the one where we all watched and we said, "Oh man, VG looks really good. This is kind of exciting." And then
Life was so real for VG. It was insane.
It really was. And then and because they were a favorite even coming into the tournament. So from the get-go, we thought VG was going to take this. When VG lost the first time around, we were sort of like surprised by the whole thing. And then this happened. So anyway, we move on to Game 2. Game 2 is a little bit more interesting. The draft for Newbie is the Brewmaster, the Weaver, which I thought was a strange pick, the Alchemist who played, that wasn't a Mid-Alchemist. Was that a Mid-Alchemist? I think it was, actually.
It was a Mid-Alchemist. I think they played the Brew as the hard carry.
Yep, so they played it was a Mid-Alchemist, it was an Earthshaker, and a Ancient Apparition. And this combo, I was really skeptical about, with the Brewmaster as a hard and Alchemist as a mid. It did, however, catch VG off guard. VG came out with a Sand King, Skywrath Mage, the Nature's Prophet again, Nature's Prophet on the opposite side this time, the Viper, and the Morphling. So a very greedy lineup, in my opinion, comes out of VG at this point, up against a very cheeky lineup from Newbie, perhaps, is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And what was your take on the drafts as we kind of end that game in general?
I feel like both the drafts are kind of unconventional, definitely. VG, as you can see, we're going for a very versatile lineup. They didn't... With the Sand King pick, it's obviously not going to be too strong roaming. Skywrath Mage can, but Sand King doesn't really do that. You have to be very spot on with your Burrow Strikes, and because of the short range at the lower levels, that's very unlikely to happen. VG, it's interesting because of the fact that VG went for a pretty farm-heavy lineup, it feels like. Sand King has to have his Blink Dagger by like the 15-minute mark, otherwise he's not going to be a factor in the mid to late game. Nature's Prophet has to start contributing and taking towers. Morphling has to get a very fast Ethereal Blade, especially against this kind of lineup. Otherwise, you'll find that the Brewmaster becomes too tanky for it to be a problem, and the Earthshake will become too tanky for it to be a problem, and the Sakuchi from Weaver will just nullify any kind of effect that Morphling can have. And the Viper is an interesting pick. Lots of people feel that Viper is a... not useless. Useless is the wrong word, but... He's designed to be a tanky hero, and he normally gets played as like either a hard carry or a mid. I can't remember how he got played in this game. I think it was a hard carry, because I think the Nature's Prophet, the Morphling went mid even. And the Viper, he didn't get the fast mech because he got ganked really early on. And what happened in this game was VG got over-aggressive, made mistakes, and Newbie just punished them for that. Like, I think it was either this game or the next game, very early on, VG obviously had the Sand King and the Skywrath Mage rotate in with the Viper to try and pick off one individual. And went in on that one individual, and then the rest of Newbie just turned up and said, "Hey, we're still here." And basically killed like 3 VG members. And you can't be making mistakes like that. At the grand finals of the International, you can't be making mistakes like that. You need to have a ward coverage to show who's there and who's not. And actually be able to pick off one hero at least. Like in this game, 1 hero was taken, and then they just lost 3, and it was insane.
And that's exactly it. And I did write down that it was the exact... I mean, the best way to sum this one up was literally the exact opposite of Game 1. So if you took Game 1, turned it on its head, and gave all the skill to Newbie, this was Game 2. I will say the Ancient Apparition in that game, who was played by San Sheng, his giant disco balls of doom, as I like to call them, or his ultimates were insanely accurate, very well placed, and a difference maker in a first couple of fights. So he didn't struggle to get his levels up, and well, like we all know, that Ancient Apparition can be a difficult one to get up to the 6. But once he's up there, he becomes really powerful, and he really kind of took this like second or third engagement out of the box from VG, and no matter where he was on the map, was nailing those apparition balls, and that was a huge, huge difference maker in the early stages of the game. So, game 2 goes to Newbie. I think everybody sitting in the pub, everybody that watched was like, wow, we got some back and forth. These are both aggressive teams. It'd be fun to see them do something like this again, and see, you know, this looks like it's going to be a final. This is exciting. And then Game 3 comes around. And now Game 3 is interesting to me because we actually see one of the best heroes played, in my opinion, probably of, I don't want to say the tournament because Universe plays some pretty amazing Void, but a top 3 or 4 played hero of the tournament. And I'm willing to say that, even though everybody says the final was terrible, at least take this away from it. So Newbie drafts themselves a Puck, a Weaver, an Alchemist, a Chen, and a Shadow Shaman. VG grabs the Apparition. They grab it was Rubik. They grab the Venomancer, a Ember Spirit, and again the Nature's Prophet. So VG says Nature's Prophet didn't work last time, but that's because we just didn't do it right. Let's try it again. Now I want to point out, so far Nature's Prophet has been picked twice out of 2 games and hasn't won either of them. So let's maybe pick him again and see what happens. All right, I dig that.
He got picked in all 3 games.
He did.
He's got picked in every single game of the grand finals, and VG picking him twice in this situation, like, it was painful to watch for VG pick a Nature's Prophet again, do exactly the same thing again, and it not work out.
Nature's Prophet is great if you have a strategy that caters to the Nature's Prophet. These guys, I mean, Nature's Prophet is great for that sort of like mid to late game, get your rat on, do your thing.
Bulldog mode.
Yeah. And it works well with the Ancient Apparition in terms of like a global, perhaps. But at the end of the day, both of these teams were playing for a 15-minute win. So what good is a Nature's Prophet going to do other than being able to show up and maybe get a pick off, which VG tried to do on a Courier and failed anyway. So the draft was rough. The draft was rough. I guess the moral of the story.
Draft was definitely rough. I feel like in this lineup, VG, like the Ember Spirit, I felt like was a good pick off. Was a good pick up anyway against the Puck. Assuming that you could land the shackles and kill the Puck before he can silence you. I feel like in the VG's draft, the Venomancer was easily the worst pick.
Yeah.
VG needed something like Venomancer's a good pusher. Don't get me wrong, Venomancer can push very well, but a lot of Chinese teams are picking the Venomancer, putting him as a hard carry to push that early lane. And in this game, it just didn't work.
It didn't. And you wonder, had they gone with like a Shadow Shaman for the push instead, who had 2 strong lockdowns to maybe deal with some of... I mean, look at the movement. Puck, Weaver, for crying out loud, like that's a giant pain. The survivability of the Alchemist once he gets his rage up, as well as the Shadow Shaman and the Chen, there's just so much representation, global ability from Newbie, and they answer with a Venomancer. So that's questionable. That said, though, I contend this. I think that VG could have come out with this game, but they put all of their resources in the first 6 minutes into killing this Puck. And this Puck, played by Moo, and we looked it up. The guys stayed at the pub snob with me. I met some random guys. We sat down, we started talking. They looked it up on Dat Dota. He has played Puck competitively 6 times in his entire career, all right? And he played, hands down, probably one of the top 3 Pucks I have ever seen. Every gank failed. Every movement was pre-taken care of. I mean, phase shift at level 1's, what, half a second?
Yeah.
And he was phase shifting like it was his job. I mean, this looked like a Dendy S4 type of Puck. And because we were laughing about it right before the draft, I looked at the guys and I was like, man, a Puck would work really well with this lineup. And the other guys were like, well, I don't think they have anybody who plays a really good Puck. So it's not something that they can risk because Puck is a high-skill player or high-skill hero. And, man, Moo took it. I don't know. It was just, guys, if you go back, watch the video. You only have to watch the first 8 to 10 minutes because after that, it gets out of control and it's kind of pointless. But watching this Puck play mid is just a thing of beauty. His escapes, his survivability, and the fact that I think he dodged 4 ganks in the first 5-8 minutes or so.
It was insane.
It was ridiculous. And they were investing everything together. They were bringing in the Nature's Prophet. They were using the ulti from the Ancient Apparition. They were literally throwing everything but the kitchen sink, and maybe even the kitchen sink at this guy. And he was surviving, and while he did that, space was made for everyone else on the map, and it just became too much to handle.
Not even just that. Like, when watching the game, I think I went to get food at this point, so the beginning couple of minutes are kind of a bit shaky for me. But from what I remember, even when people were trying to gank the Puck, the Puck was still getting kills. Like, that's the thing with a high-skilled Puck, right? A high-skilled Puck is going to shut you down so much that you just won't be able to compete against him. Like, if I remember correctly, the Ember Spirit was being played mid against the Puck, which logically makes good sense. But until Ancient Apparition has hit 6, until the Rubik can start stealing orbs and that kind of thing, you have to question how much can they really do against the Puck. Like, let's assume that you've got a solo Puck. There's going to be no responsive TPs coming out by supports. Right. You have the Nature's Prophet teleport in, Ancient Apparition Ice Blast hits, Rubik manages to steal orb and go on him, and the Ember Spirit shackles the Puck. Considering the fact that the Puck, all he has to do is orb, phase shift, and he's alive, is it worth contributing all that much effort to try and kill him? Like, he was balling out of control. He really, that's what this game was. Moo was balling out of control. And VG had to just accept that Moo was getting very, very powerful and had to focus on something else, like killing the Alchemist, killing even a support to make sure that the Prophet can get some kind of farm and maybe buy an Orchid to counter the Puck. Any of those options would have been better than just investing time into that Puck.
And if I remember correctly, Puck managed, because of the first couple of gank attempts, to get a Yule's and a Blink Dagger up very quickly. And literally, I think he just got 3 or 4 kills by just dancing around under the tower, letting the tower do most of his work for him. So that said, check out that game for that reason and that reason alone, because what happened is Newbie just raffle stomped. I actually wrote in my notes, and it's the last note I took because then I got frustrated, was Newbie's aggression is absolute. And it really was, though. Newbie really never stopped. The second that VG started to show aggression, it was like Newbie said, all right, I'll see your aggression and raise you 2 tower pushes and a dive. And it worked, though. It worked.
Yeah, it did. It really did. It's like Newbie's lineup, like with the Shadow Shaman hits 6, you grab a couple of good Chen creeps, and you have Acid Spray, and your push is probably more efficient than Venomancer Wards because of the fact that, like, VG have got Treants to push, they got Venomancer Wards to push. That's kind of it. Like, you can argue that Rubik can drop down his thing. I can't remember it's W.
His Fade Bolt.
Yeah, Fade Bolt. And push the lane, but you haven't got anyone that can really do tower damage like a Shadow Shaman or an Alchemist can. Or even a Chen. Like, it's insane. I feel like VG lost this one of the draft, and then they continued to make mistakes until they lost. And
yeah, I mean, I think they had a chance had they gotten a couple of early picks and picked out some levels really quickly. But like you said, they couldn't get the picks. They over-invested in the Puck specifically. I think they would have been better suited to utilize those gank attempts on, say, the Chen in the jungle, or maybe the Shadow Shaman on his roam. They had a Alchemist who was over in the safe lane, farming pretty much by himself with the Shadow Shaman for protection. Those are much better targets than a Moo Puck who is just blindingly good. Now, their defense, they didn't know that Moo was this good at Puck, I'm sure.
Yeah,
he's played it 6 times. They were like, oh man, Moo picked up Puck, let's go make him pay for that. And apparently he's been practicing. Like, he's been pubbing it all. He's probably been pubbing it for 3 days, being like, hey, I think I'll get pretty good at this. And I got nothing else to do because we're dominant and came out of the losers bracket as gods. So that it is what it is. So moving into game 4, perhaps the least satisfying final in history, dare I say. Newbie goes up against VG. The draft starts, and it's Brewmaster picked up by Newbie, and everybody says, big surprise. VG grabs themselves a Fetched Ancient Apparition and a Sand King, which all of us then go, huh? And then we get the Ember Spirit, a Doom, a Rubik, and a Shadow Shaman to round out the Newbie lineup. Doom was picked, I think, last in that grab section. And we say, you know, it's not too bad. That's some pretty aggressive stuff they've got going on here. VG comes back with a Venomancer again. What? And for the 3rd time, VG picks up a Nature's Prophet. They say, no, guys, I know, guys, the last 2 have not gone well for us with the Nature's Prophet. But 3rd time, that's going to be a good one. And it wasn't, was it?
No, it was horrific, right? Here's the thing with Nature's Prophet. Nature's Prophet, you have to go mid to late game. You have to be able to push towers very efficiently with your Treants. You have to have a lineup which supports the Prophet, and you have to be able to secure farm. This lineup, they put a Venomancer in the tri-lane with a Sand King in the Ancient... No, they put the Venomancer mid. I totally lie. They did a tri-lane with the Sand King, the Ancient Apparition, and the Weaver, I believe. And then had the Nature's Prophet in the off lane again. And like from previous games, Vici know that Nature's Prophet is going to get ganked. He's going to get gone on. They know because they did the same thing, and like it's disappointing to watch.
Yeah.
Like,
well, here's the big problem for me is VG again focused on the mid. They put the Venomancer there. And now, this strategy, I wasn't angry about it. So the Venomancer, you go fast 4 in your wards, right? And then you've got your Nature's Prophet pushing on his lane. You've got your Weaver putting in work on his lane. We've got Sand King farming up a quick dagger. Like, this is not terrible in terms of the fact that I can push all 3 lanes very aggressively by the 6-minute mark. The problem was Roddick. And I hate to, talk about a player individually.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you.
But he was just
playing that game was so bad.
Wrong place, wrong time. Ward placements were okay, but he got caught out at 30 seconds, gives up a first blood. 3:30, he calls in some backup because he gets gone on again because he crosses the river, and they end up taking a double, which gets fed directly into the Ember Spirit, who handled it, I think, by himself without any help. And now at 3:30, you're at 4-1. You've given up 2 kills, 2 deaths on your mid. You've brought in a Nature's Prophet who's also gone down, which negates the whole split push that you were trying to accomplish in the first place. And the game just sort of descends into terrible, terrible chaos from there, and it falls apart for him. I mean, could VG have won this without Roddick getting caught so hard? I think they could have. But on the other hand, Newbie was playing, and let no one ever take this away from Newbie. They were playing out of their damn minds last night. And I talked to some folks, and this is kind of moving on from this game. They talked about how it was an anticlimactic final. And I did contend this, though, that in the past, when we watch big European Western versus Eastern or just Western finals, you tend to see some little fights up front, skirmishes, if you will, some good farming, and then you move until the mid to end game where the big team fights determine who's going to win the thing, right? So there's like these nail-biter team fights that result in massive pushes. Well, this game was sort of the opposite. What we saw were these massive and really good rotational team fights in the first 10 minutes. And then because they were early on, one team got a massive lead, and then we went to the farm section of the game, where the other team just had to give up because they couldn't do anything. I mean, when we watched Game 4, and people got mad, you can tell me how you felt about this, the idea that they would GG with a Tier 1 tower up and all their Tier 2s made people furious. But I contend this. VG made a draft on the inception of a Venomancer ulti combined with an Epicenter and a Ancient Apparition ult. That was their combo to make this thing work in the team fight, by space for the Nature's Prophet. They got that engagement under a tower. They landed all 3 skills, and it tickled the other team. Newbie laughed and destroyed VG and got a 3-man wipe after all 3 of those skills hit. At that point, can you do anything but GG?
No. Simply put, no. Like, it's... VG lost this game at the draft. VG lost this game in the game as well because they made so many mistakes.
So many.
And VG lost this game mentality-wise. Like, you come out of a game, right? You've won game 1. You feel really confident. TI4 Grand Finals, $5 million on the line. You've won the first game. You are really happy with yourself. You go into game 2. You lose. Like, it's understandable that you lose the game 2. You go game 3. You change a couple of things. You start playing the Venomancer as a core, and you lose again. And then game 4, you're like, it's okay, guys. We'll do the same thing again. I'm sure it will work this time. Like, when you lose your mental capacity to understand why you're losing, that is why you lose games of Dota, like best of 3s and that kind of thing. Like, this strategy could have worked if it was a best of 1. Like, we've seen VG beat Newbie in best of 1s in the first game of best of 3 several times with this exact strat with the pushing lineup. And in this situation, Newbie had VG red. Newbie had obviously been focusing on what VG had been doing in different games, in all of their losers bracket games, and VG basically had been pushing continuously. Newbie realized all they had to do was kill one person 5 times, and that was the game 1, basically.
Yeah, and that was it. Oh, that's ridiculous. It was so sad.
Newbie, not just, like, with the draft as well, is pretty horrific, because Newbie realized that all they had to do was draft tanky cores, and VG wouldn't be able to deal with that because of the fact that, yes, you can push as much as you want. It's great you have a pushing lineup, but you can't push if you're dead. You
Yep.
know, like you can try
Yep.
and cast as many spells, you can do as many epicenters, and you can do as many ice blasts. Well, that's irrelevant against the likes of a Brewmaster or a Doom. Like that's one reason that I personally think Brewmaster's going to get at least a slight nerf.
Yeah.
Because the second that he uses his ultimate, he's invulnerable for like 2 seconds, and I think that's kind of overpowered in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, a simple nerf for if you could stun him during his cast time the same way you can with like an epicenter, then I think that'd be a much fairer hero. That said, I don't hate him. I mean, at the end of the day, if you see a Brewmaster picked up first, which he was, why would you draft a 15-minute lineup? Why not draft a team that's meant to isolate and non-conflict and make the game go past the point where the Brewmaster is relevant? You hit 32 minutes, and Brewmaster is nothing but a couple of stuns, right? I mean, you get some good farm on a couple of heroes, or even just a silencer for crying out loud, and you can completely eradicate the Brewmaster from the game if you're willing to wait it out. Instead, VG goes aggressive, push, which is weird combo in the first place, and ends up at the end of the game, it's 0-5 Nature's Prophet, 0-7 Venomancer, and an 0-4 Sand King. And a large portion of the Sand King and the Nature's Prophet was they kept coming in to try and save the Venomancer. And they would get there, and this is the other big thing, is they did not cancel TPs. Good lord, VG, learn to cancel a TP when things look bad. Like,
It's
seriously.
You know how typically in pub stomps, one team, it'll be fairly balanced at the beginning of the game, and then one team will take an advantage, and then they'll just keep going and going.
Yep.
Typically, that happens in pubs, you know? And when you play in the pro scene, you have to realize that you're behind and then capitalize on that. You have to start if you can, or start trying to do something else. And VG were like a group of 5 people who had just started playing Dota and realized that they were behind, and that if they kept doing the same thing, it would work. And in a game like Dota, it's not League of Legends. There is a possibility for a comeback, and that just didn't happen at all, and it was kind of unfortunate to see. I think something to point out the fact is that is how the meta game is working at the moment. Last year, you saw the Chinese teams be quote-unquote boring and continuously farm. And Dota has this kind of cyclical repetition of teams go very farm orientated, then they go very early mid game, and then they go very early game. And then they realize that you counter early game by going very late game, and it's very cyclical like that. If VG had kicked into the new meta, they draft an anti-mage, they draft a Spectre, they secure his farm.
That's what I'm saying.
What can a lineup do against that kind of damage, that kind of a Spectre damage?
Exactly.
Like, it's insane, you know. Go on, I'm talking too much.
No, you're right. I think that that's absolutely true. I think that they had some great options. I think that the Weaver was completely irrelevant in that match. You replace that with an Anti-Mage and a more of a functional mid with some escapability to line up against the Ember Spirit. I mean, Venomancer is just a terrible lineup against the Ember Spirit. Maybe you grab yourself something like a Silencer to maintain a little bit of control, and that Anti-Mage just farms out and becomes a huge issue because they don't have... Like, literally looking at the newbie draft, what are they going to go into the jungle with? What are they going to come up against you with? And I think that you're right. I think that that's what they should have done. Looked at the late game, had the answer for the Brewmaster, but at the end of the day, they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. They go down, and everyone gets mad because newbie comes out of the booth looking like they just got to their grandfather's funeral. They're not happy. They seem like they're having a rough day. Yeah, they just made, what's the first prize? $5 million and 28,000. And it's funny, when we say $5 million and some change, 28,000 was like a Premier League prize pool 6 weeks ago. So, but that said, $5 million, you just won, you're the best team in the world, and they come out and they're like, this is cool, whatevs. And America and Western Europe gets angry. But I don't think that that's fair. I mean, they're Chinese. They're known for being emotionally level and even-keeled. And that little bit of excitement we saw when they first won, I think that's what you get out of a Chinese team. Am I wrong?
No. Like, I think it's... They came out of the booth, they didn't seem happy, which is the honest truth for the Chinese. Like, they don't get excited like the Western European teams. And it's... Like, here's the thing with Dota. Everyone wants to have a fan favorite. Everyone wants to have someone that they can latch onto, and the only person you can latch onto someone and become like feel for them and try to support them is like emotional expression. Like, you find that with anyone. If someone just comes up to you like a brick wall and they're like, "Hi, how are you?"
Right.
"I'm good." Then you're not going to feel anything towards that person. You can't really get on with that person. And that's the thing with the Chinese teams. Look at the likes of Dendi, right? Dendi is always happy. Dendi's always smiling. You know when he's feeling sad. And that's why Na'Vi is such a fan favorite team. Like, honestly, if Newbie were to start smiling, they would start to be more expressionate, then it would be so much of a better financial choice. Like, they just won TI4, so I don't think finance is the hugest problem.
Right, no, they're good.
But
they're good.
They could sell so much more, like, merchandise and have so many more pennants in game and sell so many more sets based on the fact that they just smiled and they were happy.
Well, I mean, it wasn't Dendi, I think, made $410,000 last year, and they didn't win that many tournaments. And that comes from the fact that he's just, like, lovable and marketable. And I don't know, did you see there was a Casey Atchison interview with Dendi about, I think it was between the third and fourth game, when she found him with a line of fans.
Yeah, that's a picture.
But it was a really great picture. They took the selfie, which I thought I was scared for her life when she started to snap it and everybody charged towards them. But at the end of the day, like, you watched it, I looked at the guys at the bar that I was talking with, and I was like, how can you not love that guy? Like, just looking at him, he's always got a smile. He's always open to fans. Fans eat it up. And I think that maybe who knows though? I'm not from China. We don't get to spend a lot of time there. They tend not to be media open. Maybe in China that stoic face is the same thing as the goofy grin of Dendi. Who knows?
Yeah,
but maybe. That said, though, I think that was a big part of the frustration of Western fans at the end of this thing, because it felt like they knew it was meant to happen. They weren't excited about it, and it sort of felt like a little bit of a letdown. I mean, when you compare Alliance's reactions after the win last year to this year, of course, when you talk about like the dream coil that made it happen, how are you not hyped at the end of that game, right? And I will. Go ahead.
Go on, you finish. Go on.
Well, I'll say, and I will contend this, guys. In all of the Dota games you play, how many of those games result in a base race where you end up cheering at your desk, right? Very few of them. The fact that we've had multiple TIs that have sort of gone that way in the last game, I think is fairly cool and unique, but it's not something we can expect out of every game. 90% of games are over well long before they're over.
Yeah. Something to point out, the fact is that you'll find that with internationals, because they're such big events, there's always one event that everyone will always remember. Like last year, it was the $1 million Dream Call, and a lot of people are calling this year the $5 million 15-minute GG.
Makes sense.
Like, it's I want to say it's a shame, because you want a really hype final,
right?
But you have to give it to Newbie that they literally beat the living hell out of VG.
Yep.
Like, they're a very strong team.
They did.
I don't think they're unbeatable, because I think if it was like EG or Cloud9, then the way that they draft is so different, and they are always so versatile as far as they play that they could win. But this is how the international works at the moment, and it's kind of unfortunate to watch a team like Newbie win. Like, I don't agree with a lot of the things that Newbie done. I specifically don't like a couple of the players just based on what they've done in the past. Like, that might be me holding to things, but I feel like a couple of their players, they should have at least had things gone against them as far as playing in Dota goes. But you have to consider the fact that because of the way that this international has gone, like, there's been so many quote-unquote problems with it that we might actually be looking at a change to how the entire system works.
Right.
Like, TI4, great event. Knowing who one of the grand finalists is going into the first day, the first day of the grand final, sucked. Like, it was so anti-hype. Like, we knew Newbie was going to be in the final. We were like, well, this sucks.
Right.
And then half the teams didn't even get to play on the grand stage. Key Arena felt like it was half empty continuously, which sucks. Like, from a lot of the panning shots, it looked half empty. And if you have a smaller venue, it feels like the enthusiasm is so much greater. Yeah. And then a bunch of stuff, like, a lot of the smaller tournaments don't have anywhere near as much money as this. Maybe if there was like a continuous prize pool going on Dota, where, and then they said like once a month or once a quarter or something like that, they had a big tournament, and then summer comes around like WWE, and they had like the WrestleMania of Dota or something like that, and everyone would be so hyped for that. And I think that would be a lot more enjoyable than what happened in this tournament this year anyway. I think
the prize pool is interesting. I think that it'd be tough to do some sort of like redistribution throughout the year without without Valve having more control over the tournaments, and I think that what people really like about Dota is the fact that it's all community based. So that's my question there. I think that the format was uncomfortable. I think that the grand final playoffs maybe should have been done a day or two later, so that we didn't know who the grand final man was until a day or two in advance. And for instance, like really yesterday they had plenty of extra time to play some games, as well as the day before. They could have very comfortably done a losers bracket grand final and a grand final on the final day of TI. I think there's also a huge issue with the why in the world did we have a grand final at 9 a.m. Western time on a Monday, for crying out loud. Like, if this was League of Legends, different ballgame, because League of Legends players are like 12. But this is Dota 2, where players are usually adults. They're a little smarter. They have jobs for the most part. So a huge portion of the Dota 2 fan base wasn't even able to watch live, which, last year they broke over 1 million simultaneous viewers, and I don't think they broke that this year because of the fact that half of their viewers were at work. So they'll still crack, 1.5 billion more, possibly. But it's all going to be spread out because they weren't able to do this at a good time. Now, granted, they said that's because of Key Arena and that some of the time scheduling things. At the end of the day, you're putting on a $10 million, you're putting on a $10 million event that, 11 million, I should say, that grossed you in the probably area of 60 million or more. Make the adjustment, spring for the extra day, do what you got to do.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing with having a smaller arena. Like, it's obviously not going to be that sought after. I feel like it would make the event for people going a lot more enjoyable. Not anywhere near as long secret shop queues, which, is horrible. Right. It means that there's not going to be as much reselling of Dota 2 merchandise at a profit, which annoys me. I think the Dota 2 store is something that needs to be completely refigured anyway, as far as being from the EU goes. And it's kind of I feel like the losers bracket and the winners bracket should be done simultaneously.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone should have at least had one chance to play on the main stage. Arrow, they did well to qualify, and then they got continuously crapped on in the actual playoffs and the best of ones. And just being on the grand stage for them would have been amazing. They're a young team, they're up and coming, they're SEA, all of those things, just having them on the main stage, having people watching that event would have been amazing. And it just kind of wasn't, I'm afraid. I feel like the entire system does need a bit of a rework, though. As far as being best of ones for seeding places and that kind of thing.
Right.
The side advantage is so ridiculous, and with best of twos you can try and retaliate a little bit better if you're getting pushed. Let's take a team like Liquid. They come out of the wild card, right, and they demolish so many teams because of their weird, interesting drafts.
Right.
And if they'd had best of twos, that might not have been the case, and there might not have been as many upsets. And in that situation, you have the teams that are legitimately the best actually having better seedings,
Right, yeah.
With DK got pretty they should have. I honestly feel like they should have had a higher seeding. I feel like their performance this international wasn't as good as normal, but that's by the by.
Right.
They're honestly one of the top 2 teams in the world with Newbie, but their gameplay, which wasn't on point this international, still they could have got a higher seeding. They could have had a higher than a 4 seeding, and unfortunately this goes testament to that.
Yeah.
But
so
the system needs a rework.
it does need a rework. It's the first time it's been this big. It looked good. There were some changes and a lot of stuff where it was I think that Valve said, we want to go legit with this. We want to get big. We want to get on ESPN and get some extra coverage. How do we do that? And they made some changes that were good, but not quite ready, is probably the way that I would say it. But that said, it was a big tournament. It was a great tournament. Winner took home. So we'll just go over the prize pool for those of you who may not be up on it or have thought about it. The guys who won, boom, they took over $5 million. We know that. Second place, the guys who lost, the guys who got caught out, the guys who played a Venomancer twice, took home $1.4 million. So that's pretty massive. EG, now the American/Canadian/one Swedish man team, though I think America pretty much claims them, took home $1 million. Well, one .03, so just over $1 million for them and split up among them. And now that's huge because a lot of people didn't even think 6 months ago, we talked about this, 4 months ago PPD joined EG. And a lot of folks were like, I don't know if this is going to work out. He started drafting for him, started killing it, and all of a sudden they get third place. So I was talking to some guys and I was like, yes, they didn't win. Yes, we thought that they might be in the finals. But at the end of the day, 4 months ago, we didn't even think they'd show up on the board for the final 8. And here they are getting third. So kudos to them. I think they did a really great job. I think that I've heard rumors that Mason said he was not planning on continuing to play after the international, which maybe opens up a spot, a much-needed spot on the team. And I would not be surprised. I would like to see maybe somebody like Go Black picked up to fill out that spot. Or maybe some other options. But, I already talked about the EG games. I'm not going to go back into it. But I think that they, with a very small roster shuffle, which a lot of teams will be shuffling rosters right now, a very small roster shuffle, they can be a front runner for TI5. So fourth place picks up $800,000. Fifth and sixth both get $655. Ninth and 10th both get $49. 11th and 12th get $38, and 13th and 14th get $21. So even if you finished second or third to last in the final, in the big brackets, you got paid out pretty well. In fact, I think the only people of the top 16, Navi US just barely missed the payout, and I think it was Titan just missed the other one. So, unfortunate for them, they fell out. Everybody else made more money than they would in most tournaments throughout the year. Most of your pro tournaments are sitting anywhere from the 30,000 to 100,000 mark if you're really lucky, and all of these teams were able to make enough they could probably support the team for the remainder of the year. You think in sixth place, you made $655,000. That is, let's even talk what is it? Yeah, eighth place, you made $519. That means that if you finished in the eighth place, your team, like a Navi, Navi already makes a lot of money, like a Cloud9, a team who's been kind of struggling to make ends meet, now each of their players has more than enough to live very comfortably for a year or two and just focus on training, which I think bodes really well for a good TI5.
Definitely. Cloud9 is definitely one of the teams that I would expect to do better next year. I feel like this year they didn't place as well as they should have, and that's because they played against Vici. They weren't prepared for the push strat, and that was kind of the case. Plus, Cloud9 versus Vici really did get screwed over as far as their Game 3 goes. For those of you that don't know, Cloud9 versus Vici, losers bracket, not the lowest, but one up from that. I can't remember what it's called, like quarterfinals probably. Right. Comes to Game 3. It's 1-1 apiece. Cloud9 won Game 1, Vici won Game 2, and Cloud9 have won Game 3. And Cloud9 go into this game, their draft is not the most obvious that it's going to be a level 1 Roshan. They draft people like Luna, they draft Nature's Prophet, and that kind of implies that it could possibly be a level 1 Roshan, but it's unlikely. Luna is one of these hard carries that tends not to get picked much anymore unless you're doing like a level 1 Roshan strat.
Right.
So Cloud9 go to do this level 1 Roshan, and all the crowd is really hyped. Cloud9, a huge Western team, doing level 1 Roshan, taking the risks because they really want to win, and the entire crowd is getting really, really excited and really loud because of this level 1 Roshan. And the team of VG, ROTK, this says to his team, apparently, this is what he said. Right. He's playing Venomancer. He says, I'm going to go check Roshan, and the four of you go and make sure they're not warding our jungle or anything. And he's found out that they're doing the level 1 Roshan. And Toby and stuff were trying to make sure that they were quiet. And that basically meant that level 1 Roshan got destroyed for Cloud9, basically, in my opinion, because of the crowd. Because with that much cheering, it has to be a level 1 Roshan, you know?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they also warn the players about this. They say this is a reality of live tournaments. It happened in the qualifiers, it happened in ESL, and it's something where they say, if you're going to do it, just be aware that it's probably, that people are going to cheer. And if Cloud9 took the risk, they took the risk. I think it's on them for being willing to do that with the crowd there. Cheeky plays, but I'm curious to see where they go next year. I don't know. I've heard rumors that Eternal Envy is looking at some other possible teams, so I'm curious to see how that plays out. And obviously, we'll keep you guys updated here on the show as the shuffles go down over the next couple of weeks. But that is TI. That is the final. That's what happened. You can watch all of the replays on Dota2.com. In fact, you can watch them start to finish on their DVR feature, which I thought was actually a really cool feature, by the way, for TI this year. The idea that you could watch the entire thing start to finish as if you had recorded it on your TV. That's a pretty nice little thing that they added. So that's TI. That's what happened. It's all over. It's done. The hype that we've waited all year for is gone. Now starts the rebuilding. We'll see some new tournaments starting up. I know the 82L is in full swing. SIVO is starting up next week. SECS should be back next week. The Reddit Dota League is kicking up in about 2 weeks. So a whole bunch of stuff is getting rolling. Get out there, get signed up for them. I'm going to start collecting the tournaments that are going on. So if you know of a new tournament, let me know. I'll announce it on the show. Make sure it gets heard about just a little bit more. And the post-TI glow is about us as we all think about how do we parlay the success of a $10 million tournament and all the sponsorships and all the money that entails into more Dota over the next year. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. But in the interest of time, Craze, we'll move on to talking about the news so that we can get people out of here without having to listen to an hour and 45-minute show. So quick updates on the terms of video game news for you guys. Do you play Hearthstone, Craze?
I've heard of it. I haven't played much of it. I know it got released, and that's your news.
It did. The new cards were released yesterday, so they're revealed. We know it's coming out. I think the actual release is today or tomorrow of those cards into the game. So if you're a Hearthstone player, I enjoy it casually. Whole bunch of new cards. Get ready for it. If you want to go over to GameSpot.com, they have the whole list right there. Heroes of the Storm has announced that they have new heroes, a new map, and they're going to continue to try to make the game unique. So I've been on the beta for Heroes of the Storm for a while. It's okay. It's a good casual MOBA. It's all skill shots, but it's sort of meh. One interesting thing, though, is they have a ton of different maps. So it's sort of like they're changing up the MOBA genre. Instead of just fine-tuning one map, you've got to master 3 or 4 arenas, which I think is an interesting dynamic, but not enough to really catch me and say, hey, play this game. So,
yeah.
But for those of you who like it, new map. Yay!
Heroes of the Storm, I played a little bit of it. It felt very League-ish to me. And
yeah,
like, I'm a Dota player. I played League. I tried to get into it because a bunch of my friends at university do really enjoy it. And I couldn't enjoy League. I kind of enjoyed Heroes of the Storm, but as you said, it is mostly skill shots. And yeah, like what I like about Heroes of the Storm, there's a lot of new MOBAs coming up. Heroes of the Storm is definitely one of them. They take a different approach to, I think it's how like barracks and that kind of thing works, because it's mana regeneration or something.
Yep.
Because they basically have a bunch of robots that run from like the edge of this circle to the middle of this circle, like moving some kind of glowing object, and that is a really interesting mechanic, I think.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it progresses for sure.
It will, and I know there's a couple of things. First and foremost, Blizzard has said they're not interested right now in making it a competitive gaming system. They just want it to be a casual, go have some fun game. But yeah, those mechanics I think are interesting ideas, and I look forward to seeing how they're integrated into future MOBAs that are trying to get into the competitive, the competitive field. So that said, if you've ever wanted to work for a video game company, go find EA. EA has just announced that they're hiring for the first new franchise since the Will Wright departed. So they basically want you, and they've announced this. This is open news. You can go to the EA website and apply. They want understanding of games like Minecraft and Little Big Planet to be on the development team. So it sounds like The Sims, the master of simulation, are looking to create a sandbox style of game with pure construction and voxels, which I think if anybody can do it right, it'll probably be EA's Sims team, since they've been doing it forever. But if you want to join that, you can go apply. But I thought it was worth noting, since it's pretty rare to find a job in one of these 4 big studios. And finally, an interesting choice in my opinion, but FIFA 15 adds Clint Dempsey to the North American cover instead of Tim Howard. What? I don't even know. I got a guest from England. You're from England, right?
Yeah, I'm from England.
I've got a guest.
I know neither of these people. So
what do you mean you don't know neither of these people? Tim Howard is one of the. Oh, you probably don't follow soccer. You're probably like one of those lame Englishmen who's like, oh, I prefer cricket.
We're sitting here talking about Dota. It's a talk show related to video games.
No,
You're like, you don't know sports. What is this shit?
That is a fair point. That is a fair point. Anyway, for those of you who are North American viewers, a lot of our fans are. You know Tim Howard from the World Cup. He had the greatest goalkeeper performance in World Cup history. He set records for the amount of saves, and the guy who couldn't score goals gets the cover of FIFA 15. So that's kind of the whole joke about that one. So those are your video game news for the day for the most part. We'll give you the 5 things you need to know to sound super smart in front of your boss or coworkers regarding news. And first and foremost, hey, guess what? We still don't know what happened to that Malaysian airline who got shot down. So that's still two Malaysian airlines that we have no answer for, other than the fact that the Ukraine says, hey man, we didn't do it. And Russia says, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's pretty much literally all that we've got going on in that one. So best of luck to you guys. Best of luck talking about that when they bring it up at the water cooler. Just be like, yeah, Toffees said it's a fuck show. So have a great day.
Yeah, to talk about the Malaysian Airlines flight, it's really weird actually, because a lot of people were accusing like Ukraine and Russia of shooting down the flight, and yet everyone's letting Russia and Ukraine like look at the site where the plane crashed, and it's basically like letting criminals deal with a crime scene. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? I mean,
right. It's like watching Super Troopers when, like, you know, the police who were escorting drug smugglers were like, oh, this is our jurisdiction. That's exactly what it is. So, it is. What are you going to do?
Yeah, agreed.
So, second, Mideast crisis, diplomatic rounds. Basically, Secretary of State John Kerry is in Jerusalem right now as we try to help, as the United States once again tries to go in and help broker a ceasefire somewhere. We're there. I guess we've set up a meeting between Palestine and Israel, or Hamas and Israel. Will it work out? Who knows? You know, it's one of those things. 27 Israeli soldiers have died and 2 civilians in rocket attacks. On the other side of the border, Hamas, I think, has lost something like 570 Palestinians, a large portion of them being civilians. It's an interesting situation, and if you want to have something smart to talk about it, you can talk about Israel is struggling with the same thing that America did back in Vietnam in the 1970s. Hamas uses civilians to hide soldiers in arms. And do you target the civilians, or do you let the Hamas do whatever they want because you can't target civilians? It's a huge dichotomy that's existed for a long time in politics and war, and Israel's struggling with it right now. Unfortunately, 570 Palestinians dead doesn't look so good.
America and democracy. That's the only 2 things that really scream out to that story. America doing its thing all over the world. All you have to say is America, fuck yeah, and leave. Like,
exactly.
And talk about the story. That's your leaving line right there.
It is. It's our walkout. But hopefully Kerry does something. Kerry's sort of like the less valuable Hillary Clinton, so we'll see if he can get anything done. Let's see. South Korea, there was you'll read that one on your own. There was this big investigation for a fugitive billionaire who they thought killed someone in South Korea, and they finally did a DNA test. And anyway, long story short, there's a billionaire in trouble in South Korea, and it's only a big deal because I don't know if you know this, South Korea is run by conglomerates in a lot of ways, like Samsung and a couple of the other big Korean companies, tech giants, run Korea. And it's a pretty big problem over there. Like, a huge portion of the wealth is in the hands of these conglomerates. So the fact that one of the heads of these conglomerates is in trouble with the law is sort of big news in South Korea, because previously they're sort of untouchable, if that makes sense. Kind of like, I don't know how your aristocracy works in England, but America is very much the same way. When someone rich and famous gets in trouble, everybody looks the other way. So.
Yeah, it works one of 2 ways. Either the media get together and they're like, yeah, he's done enough bad things that we feel like we can sell stuff off of him, or it just kind of gets swept under the rug. Like, a lot of, in case you didn't know, like, the way our policy, our government works is that every area basically has a number of voters. Okay, so the way that the population's split up, there's a number of people that go to Parliament based on that area. So, like, London's got, like, I think 5 or 6... freaking ice cream truck, don't know what that's about, has like 5 or 6 people that go to Parliament.
Right.
And basically then when they vote in Parliament, because those people that have gone to Parliament are part of political parties, the vote gets swung in one way or another. I'm not sure what my original point was here. I've talked so much about... Go on.
So we now understand a little bit about the politics, but that ice cream truck, I think, threw you. All you could think about was getting yourself a nice rocket pop or something of that sort.
It destroyed me. 99s, right?
It tore you apart.
99s are the best things in England. You
Nice.
go to, if you ever come to England, find yourself an ice cream truck, ask for a 99 with a flake. You'll be a happy man.
Interesting. I've been to London a bunch of times, and it's I've never had a 99, so I'll work on that. My wife's company is based out of Hoddesdon, so I'm actually in North London quite often. That said, though, immigration is another big topic. Rick Perry is sending a bunch of troops. National Guards are going to be mobilized in Texas to secure the border. Blah blah blah. Long story short, in America, we need an extra $10 billion a month to deploy the National Guard to stop people from crossing the border. Is the announcement made in Congress, which is great because we're already hundreds of billions of dollars in debt, so why not spend $12 million a month? Great job, America, because apparently we're the land of open borders until a couple of years ago, and now you can just get wrecked. So, fun stuff. And finally, a Mexican billionaire, Carlos Slim, has proposed a 3-day work week. He's suggesting that 3-day work weeks sound good. You should, instead of working 8 hours, work 11 hours, and workers should stay on the job until they're 70. But working 3 days, you'll have more time for quality of life. Now, a lot of folks are talking about this because it's not a terrible idea. I know that in England, you're sort of starting to get on the same process that the Americans do, which is an 8-hour work week is an 8-hour work day is a pipe dream. Most of us work at minimum 9, but often 10 or 11 hours a day anyway. And the idea of, do you do this so that you can retire at 65 or 60 and go traveling around the world? The idea now of a 3-day work week means maybe we work the same hours, maybe we work a little longer, but hey, if I've got 4 days off, I can do my traveling right now.
Yeah. South America, Mexico, and a lot of the South American countries is really interesting because I know definitely in Spain, at least, what they like to do is take like the middle 2 or 3 hours of their day.
Right.
Just take the middle 2-3 hours off because of the heat. That's something that they have to do because of how hot it is. It's called a siesta, in case you ever wondered what that is.
So they tell us.
So like they're just lazy people.
Right, well, it's like the French system, right? Like, hey, we want a better economy, and then President Sarkozy says, well, you know what? Let's increase the work week to 40 hours. We're gonna riot. All right, never mind. I mean, I worked for a company for a long time that we opened offices in every country in the world for the most part, except France, because it's fiscally functional to have anything open in France because you just couldn't be up long enough to make money. So it's a interesting system. I don't know. It's something to talk about. It's something that if anything, that'll show up at work or at school or at the restaurant today. The idea of a 4-day weekend and how good that sounds. Since most Americans work until they're 75 anyway, I think that a lot of the Western cultures, America, Western Europe, would probably embrace an idea like this. So something to keep in mind.
75 is really high. Like even in England, quite a few of European countries, it's like 65 for women and 68 for men. So 75 is high already for you guys. That's likely to get increased with this kind of 3-day work week proposal.
Yep. At the end of the day, I think the idea is with this proposal, you work until you die, but you have more time to enjoy along the way. So you get to spend 4 days with your grandkids when you're 52 instead of 4 days when they're off to college and not around when you're 65. So it's an interesting theory. That said, though, that's your news for today. Those are the 5 facts that you need to know. And we'll leave out with the update that we bring you every day. We only get 11 more days of doing it, and that is the potato salad update, guys. You've heard about the potato salad situation going on right now, Craze?
I have not. I have tuned into a few podcasts, a few of the shows, but normally because of the timing for me, I'm either doing something or I'm a horrible person who didn't listen.
So I'm going to link it to you in Skype. This is a Kickstarter. A gentleman named Zach Danger Brown, as a joke, put up a Kickstarter that said, I want to make potato salad, help support me. All right? For his friends. His stretch goal was $30, and he said he'd throw a party for everyone with a potato salad. As of right now, with 11 days left to go, Zach Brown has backers who have pledged $61,000 to him to make a potato salad. So his stretch goals just get bigger and bigger. It's actually really funny to read through his website, but he's basically buying out a giant conference center with a huge kitchen. He invited the entire internet to attend, and he's going to make potato salad. So never in anyone's life, I think, did he think that he would make this joke and somehow become a rich man off of it, but it is working.
Pledge $5 or more. Deluxe package. Choose a potato salad appropriate ingredient to add to the potato salad.
Yeah.
557 times over.
Yeah, so it's funny because when you look at it, like, the stretch goals at the beginning were like, clearly this was a joke between him and his friends. And as it continues, he's like, I guess I'll make hats now. You know, and it just keeps going. And yeah, it's just, I think it's hilarious. So he's also put some posts up that say, like, you know, I'm going to have to amend what you get for your backings just a little bit, or I'm trying to figure out a functional way to make this happen. You know, because one of his goals was like, everybody who donates $5 gets a bite of the potato salad. So
wow.
How do you get a bite to 6,000 people? And I'm curious to see how it goes down. But we're giving the update every day because I think it's hilarious. It's an example of the frivolity and yet the ability to mobilize of the internet, and it is lovable in every way. I mean, we all saw that when Sir Action Slacks, for instance, had his computer meltdown. He put up a Kickstarter and said, hey guys, I have to leave for a while. I can't do any videos because my computer blew up. And I think within 2 days he had a new computer funded by Kickstarter because people wanted to see him go back to making videos. So it's amazing what the power of the internet can do.
Crowdfunding. It's a glorious thing.
It
Look at
really
TI.
is. Look at TI. TI, over, I mean, 1,000% increase, right? Over the actual prize pool due to crowdfunding. So that's it, though. That's what I want to talk about for the show today. Before we sign out, Craze, do you have any plugs, any intros? Where can they find you? This is your 30 seconds to say what you want.
Nowadays, best place to find me and my aimless ramblings is on my Twitter and my Twitch. Twitter.com/craze with a 4. You can see it on the top left of your screen, exactly like that. And then my Twitch is twitch.tv/crazex. If you want to hear more aimless casting, which sometimes comes out a little bit biased, but mostly not, I abuse low MMR people for being low MMRs, and sometimes do pubcasts. And it's fun, and I hang out and play video games. So if you want to come have some fun, on the EU side of the great pond that we have between us, you know where to find me. Thanks for having me on. It's been great fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I still haven't showered yet today. So.
Well, let's get you in the shower. Maybe
Let's
get
do
you
that.
a little bit of sleep. I won't be there, as I will be in Boston. You know, the place that threw the shackles of Craze's people off of us. But at the end of the day, we appreciate you guys spending the morning with us. Keep in mind that these will be live on YouTube as well as SoundCloud by the time, probably within an hour or so once the uploads are done. You can always catch us there. Set up an RSS feed. Listen to the show on the run. I'm here every single morning, and we have all kinds of guests stop in, just like Craze did today. Basically anyone who's online stops in the studio and is willing to chat about, and we're excited to have them here. So thanks for joining us. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Of course, my name is Toffees. You can follow me at Toffees_Dota2. You can also hit the follow on the stream or on any of the channels for which you're watching. And that's always appreciated. That said, guys, we are going to leave you... Let's pick which song I'm going to do. We'll leave you with a song by the Kicks this morning as we sign out. It's called Good Morning. I think it'll be a good start to your day. So enjoy the music. And as always, Toffees out.